Well, shalom, Zyra.
Shalom.
Zyra, do you know what shalom actually means?
It means peace, and it's also a way to say hello.
Exactly. So why don't we say shalom to all the people who are joining us here today?
Shalom.
Shalom. So Zyra, I have here in front of me a building. Now, can you tell me what the name of the building was called that the people in Bible times would come to worship God?
A tabernacle.
Exactly, it was called a tabernacle. Now, a tabernacle means dwelling place. And this tabernacle was made up of a whole bunch of different kinds of rooms. Now, at the front was the courtyard. And this is where ordinary people could just hang out. Now, there was two other rooms that these people, ordinary people, were off limits to. They could not go into these special rooms. So the first room here was called the Holy Place. And the room at the back was called the Holy of Holies. Now, only the high priest could enter the Holy of Holies. And inside the Holy of Holies, there was the Ark of the Covenant. And inside the Ark of the Covenant, they kept the Torah. Do you know what the Torah was?
It's like a scroll.
Exactly, it was the scroll, but this is what the scriptures were written on. So this was their Bible at the time, and it was kept in this very sacred place, the Holy of Holies. Now, the Holy of Holies was so special that it actually had a really heavy, thick, purple curtain that went on there to separate it from everywhere else. And there was a reason for this. Remember we said that tabernacle means dwelling place?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Holy of Holies was the dwelling place of God. This was where the very presence of God was. And because our sin separates us from God, they had to put this heavy curtain here, because if anybody were to look into the Holy of Holies, do you know what would happen to them?
They thought they would die.
Exactly, they thought they would die, because this was the very presence of God. And so this purple curtain was a visual symbol of how their sin separates them from God. And so the priest would go into the Holy of Holies one time a year. Now, before he would go in, he would offer a sacrifice. Zyra, what kind of animal would they typically use for a sacrifice?
I'm guessing a lamb.
You're right. They would usually use a lamb. Now, this lamb had to be perfect, without blemish. And this lamb was sacrificed for the sin of all the people on this day, the Day of Atonement. And then the priest had to go a whole bunch of cleansing rituals before he could enter into the holy place through the curtain into the Holy of Holies. Now, Zyra, today is a very special day to us. What is this day actually called?
Good Friday.
That's right, today is called Good Friday. Now, 2,000 years ago, this was not a Good Friday. In fact, this was a dark and horrible day. Zyra, can you tell us what happened on Good Friday?
Well, Jesus was arrested, and then he was beaten and spit on, and then later nailed to a cross.
You are exactly right. This was a dark day. Jesus was arrested, like you said. He was taken to court, and at court he was beaten and spit and mocked upon. And just like you said, he was nailed to a cross. Now, this was a very scary day, especially for his disciples. Can you tell me a little bit maybe about what his disciples might have been feeling?
I think they would have been scared and worried because the Messiah had come to save everyone, and then not too long later, he had died.
Exactly. Here, this Messiah had come. They were so excited. A week earlier, they were waving those palm branches. They were going to be rescued. They were going to be saved. And here, this Jesus allowed himself to be nailed to a cross. Now, they had seen Jesus do like so many miracles, miracle after miracle after miracle. They knew that he had power. Why didn't he save himself? Why didn't he pull himself off the cross? The disciples were scared. They were anxious. They were worried. This was a scary day. But what they didn't know was that Jesus had come to change everything. They didn't understand yet that they were never going to need a priest anymore to talk to God. They didn't know that there wasn't going to be a need for a curtain to separate them from God's presence. They didn't realize yet that a lamb didn't need to be sacrificed for their sins anymore. They didn't know yet that God was no longer going to dwell in the Holy of Holies, but He was going to dwell in their hearts. They didn't know that Jesus' death on the cross was changing everything, and that on that day, this dark and horrible Friday, one day it would be called
Good Friday.
Exactly.